The hope is that with any of these shows, the DIY, HGTV, Magnolia, television with Chip and Joanna Gaines, whatever it be, I think at the end of the day, all of this television, people are just getting inspired. So whether or not it be shops, whether or not it be for them to build themselves, it's all about inspiring people to try to look at things a little different and say, yeah, you can do it. There's certain things that I'm going to say, you can do it, but you're not going to do it in a weekend.
Every day, we're bombarded by everything wrong in the world. When we pick up our phone, turn on the TV, or listen to the radio, we hear all about the heartbreak and destruction happening across the globe. But what if we could change that? What if we could begin to heal the world by focusing on all that's right? We're surrounded by stories of those helping their communities, achieving amazing things, and overcoming insurmountable obstacles. My name is Kelly Rowland, and it's my mission to share stories of love, hope, and inspiration on Born to Inspire podcast. I have a confession to make. I'm addicted to home remodeling shows. My favorites always involve older historic homes. Well, a couple of years ago, I came across an amazing show called Schoolhouse Revival. The host, Jeff Devlin, is a carpenter and licensed contractor who restores these historic homes in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. Some of these homes are literally older than the country itself. It's fascinating to learn the history behind these homes and to watch Jeff put the history back when it's been stripped away over the years. Well, I had the opportunity to interview Jeff about his journey to success, and to say I'm excited is an understatement. As a matter of fact, in all my excitement, there was a moment where I had a completely nerdy laugh that I had to edit out. You're welcome. Before we get started today, we have a new Born to Inspire series from Bryce Weiler. Bryce is the co-founder of the Beautiful Lives Project, an organization that helps disabled individuals realize their sports dreams. And he's also a sports commentator who happens to be blind. He's such an inspiration and full of words of wisdom. So starting today, every episode will have a motivational morsel from Bryce. Today's topic is happiness. Take it away, Bryce.
It's important for people to live a happier life, because when a person is happy, he or she can be the most successful that they can be. They can feel they are giving value to others. And when you're living a happy life, you feel better about everything. Things can go wrong in your day, and you still feel like you were productive because you helped someone. You might have helped someone cross the street, or you might have found someone who's blind, like myself, aimlessly walking along the sidewalk and not knowing where they're going, and you helped them. You also may have tried to help someone who didn't want your help, and they became frustrated at you and maybe even scolded you for trying to help them. Maybe someone who's blind again, or someone who's in a wheelchair, or things such as that. But you should be happy because you tried to do what you thought was best to help that person be successful, and you are trying to do every day in your life things that make you happy, but also can help you to help others to be happy, because one cannot live a happy life by himself or by herself. He or she has to have others and do other things to make a life truly be happy.
Thank you, superstar Bryce Weiler.
Thank you so much, Kelly.
The average cost of a 3-credit-hour university course in America is $1,782. You could pay that, or you could listen to the Deconstruction Workers podcast and get a semester's worth of college knowledge for free. Popular culture professors turn their academic knowledge towards all of your favorite movies, television shows, theater productions, and more, for free. The Deconstruction Workers podcast is available at thedeconstructionworkers.com or on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, Overcast, Podcast Addict, or wherever you get your podcast fix. Give us an hour and we'll make you smarter. Money back guarantee.
Welcome to Born to Inspire podcast, Jeff. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Things are going really well. Kids are fed for the time being and wait 15 minutes and then they'll be hungry again, but all is good.
Well, first of all, for one thing, you have no idea how excited I am. Yeah, I love Schoolhouse Revival. I just absolutely love that show. I love history, and I love that you go in there and you put that history back in. So thank you so much for being on my podcast.
My pleasure. We are very happy to do what we do. You know, we always joke around and say we do it without the cameras. And that's something that we truly do mean, and we love the aspect of it. It's finding purpose. I know, not every day is great. I'm not going to lie to you and say I love what I do every single moment of every day. I'd be lying, and so would everybody else in the entire world. But there are moments that lift you up that are really, truly incredible, that you realize what you get to do, the impact you get to have, both on your kids, both on your family, both on your friends, both on the people that you see and meet. And then, as corny as it sounds, the legacy that you create with your work, living in an old house and working on old houses, there is the deed of record, and that deed records who's lived in that house. Many of the homes that were built just yesterday and 2 days ago, yes, they have a deed as well, but they're certainly not as long. And I'll guarantee you, they're pretty much not going to be standing 300 years from now like some of these old stone homes are, because of their different structure and building. Not that it's a bad thing, but it's just a thing. So getting added to that deed, to me, is really important. And being a part of history, my house in particular has ties back to Benedict Arnold's wife's family. So that, to me, it makes me inspired to want to work on certain projects and really delve in a little deeper. And, I hated history in school. I hated school. So now going back and finding that history can be absolutely incredible, and finding the stories, more important than not, that are behind the stories behind these things, that's what's really cool. It really inspires.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of school either, but as an adult, I've come to love history, and especially that part of the country. I love the East Coast and all the history that's there. Did you know you wanted to go into carpentry or anything like that?
No, I was a pretty quiet kid, believe it or not, which most people can't really believe. I was really into sports and athletics, and I was not into school. So meaning that I wasn't interested in going to college. It was really important because of how my dad grew up. He didn't have the opportunity to go to college. So it was really important that he pushed me in school to make sure that I did better than he did, and that, I made something of myself. And he didn't feel technically that carpentry was going to do that. I'm sure I have 6 brothers, one is a doctor, one is an artist, one is, owns a bunch of businesses. So just being a carpenter really wasn't that enticing to him. And I get it. I don't want to talk about daddy issues, but, he wanted something, he wanted best for me, what he thought was best for me. Because I was pushed away from school, carpentry was another option. The trades were something that we had back in the day when I went to school. We had wood shop where you were actually allowed to use the tools and you were allowed to cut. We had welding. We had cooking too, which I still mix up recipes, and I put salt instead of sugar in on the muffins, and that's never good. Tell you, don't do that, Kelly. Don't do that. Anyway, I started, when the whole college thing, I did the aptitude test where they're like, what things, or maybe it's not aptitude, what things are you going to be good at after high school? And it pretty came back like, you're not interested in anything. Guidance counselor, I told him I wanted to be a carpenter, said, it's not really a very high paying profession. I don't know that that's in it for you. I don't see much of a career in that. And I kind of took that as like, oh my gosh, all right. When I was around 15, 16, I started dabbling in construction, or dabbling in working with my hands and building things. When I mean dabble, I grabbed Dad's old hammer. It sounds like a story, but I would grab the bent nails that he would save, because he was born in the Depression. So therefore, they save everything. It could be garbage, and he saved it. So every nail, every screw, everything is always saved. So when it came out to kind of figure out what I wanted to do, I was watching TV and had watched it regularly, This Old House. And I was really inspired by that show, and that would be cool to do. And then I'd go out to the garage and I'd, try to put together a birdhouse. It'd take 3 days. And then it turned into, I made a couple birdhouses. I went to our family church craft show, and I set my 3 birdhouses out that took me like 4 years to build, or 4 weeks, something silly like that. And then the next thing I know, I was selling these things. Probably needed a tetanus shot with the ones that I was making. But if you sell it at church fair, I was a sucker. I had the big doggy eyes. I was like, oh, please. And all the old ladies bought the birdhouse from me. So it was really cool. And that inspired me. As soon as I built something and somebody purchased it from me, that started, it just kind of kicked me in the butt a little bit. And then I wanted to do it again and again and again. I met a historic home remodeler who took me under his wing, pretty much paid me to teach me how to do stuff. And while I had, in my process, I had my, electric tools and was plugging stuff in and cutting and being as efficient as I probably could by the time I was 18, he pretty much took it out of my hand and said, here's a block plane. I want you to go do this, this, and this. Thought he was crazy. And then I just started to slow down. And in that process, I started to understand more of the history. I started to like the history. I started to like the stories. And, dare I say, the rest is history. It's just something where every day I grow. Every day I learn something new. Every day I'm awestruck by even my assistant, Brett, my employee, and he's 22. A better version of me, which kind of makes me jealous sometimes. But it's fun to see where I've been and where, hopefully where I'm going.
What other homes have you restored where it has a connection to somebody famous?
So, it depends on how you would deem famous. There's many different people that say George Washington was here, but there's never really too much proof,
Yeah.
We do work. We're very, very close around the Valley Forge National Historic Park. So we all know about the encampment of 1777 in that area. We also know about the Battle of Brandywine right down the street from where I live, and many of the different battles down in Washington's Crossing and stuff like that. There's a couple of generals that most people wouldn't recognize their names of properties that we've been to, not necessarily worked on yet. Some of them, General Sterling is one that we're hoping it's a property within Valley Forge Park that we're hoping to get to work with. Knox Bridge is a very famous bridge in the area where the company came in and redid that. There's a Knox house there. It's very cool. We haven't got to work on that one, but there's what's the other one? The Steuben house. So there's a bunch of houses in our area where you might think they're not, famous. Benedict Arnold became famous because of his, whatever. Everybody knows the story. I don't need to repeat it, but he became famous for something that was a little different. Where, quite honestly, his history is really interesting in that he was a very, very kick butt general. He did a great job, and then he just didn't feel like he wasn't appreciated. And I think all of us at some point can really kind of latch on to that. But we've worked on a bunch of different properties, all with local, like William Penn connections and stuff like that. And most of the time, you're not going to get like everybody also says that they have the Underground Railroad underneath their building or something like that. And believe me, I'm always excited to find it. And most of the time I'm like, oh, darn it, it's not that one. There is a property where I will say we did find something that was absolutely extraordinary, which I had never seen, which alluded to that that's exactly what it was. But that was the first, one. And we didn't shoot that one on the show, which would have been awesome. But it was through a well. You had to jump over a well, and there was a ledge, which then you couldn't tell with how it was built because there were ledges that they did all the way around. You couldn't tell that there was a passage around the other side. It was so ingenious, like so ridiculously ingenious, that it was just really cool.
That's what I was going to ask you if it was on the show, because I would totally watch that. That's fascinating. Yeah. I know your passion is to put the history back into the home after it's been stripped away over the years. What is the process that you go through to accomplish this? Do you do a lot of research and stuff like that?
So we do. And when we say we put the history back in the home, sometimes, again, this is all client driven at the end of the day. We can make suggestions to do certain things. And there are a lot of things on the show that you'll see that might not be exactly how I would do it. It is client driven, and it's also production driven and time frame driven and budget driven. So it's not always exactly how I want to do it. But again, it's at my house, so I have to be very cautious about that. So when we talk about how, because I'm still learning on even some things, I'm like, oh, this is interesting. I don't know the local history of every area. I don't know every township. I know enough to be dangerous in a majority of this stuff, but certainly not enough to be the greatest knowledge or the greatest brain in the world on it. So I have to dig into the local books. I have to kind of look at it. I have to grab my research as well and try to figure it out, go into the homeowner, trying to pick their brain, trying to find out who lived there before. And then the building does tell us a lot of times how it was built prior, once we start opening it up. So we can have the greatest plan in the entire world, and then we notice that it's, framed a little differently, or there's something we didn't expect because it wouldn't have been common. Building practices were not practices back then. They were random for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Not everyone, but in the homes that we come across, these more primitive homes, these are farmers building their homes. You have some people coming over from all over, building homes in maybe more the English way, but then you have a majority of the ones that we're working on that are farmers who are just trying to put up their shelter before it gets really cold.
Does it feel different to be in a home that old than it is a regular home? Do you feel the spirits and all of that? Yeah.
You feel the life in it. You feel that there's been life in it before. The home that I live in is 1752, is when it was built. Now, we can say it was built in 1752, but most likely it wasn't. It was either built prior to that or after that, depending on, normally the land was deeded at that time, and then they built the house. Probably took a couple of years for them to build it, or a year, depending on whether or not it's stone, wood, what have you. But yeah, you find out, it's just a different feel. I will always live in an old home. It's sad to say, I'm considering moving out of this home that I've lived in for 15 years. But in speaking with my girlfriend, I'm like, I'm not moving into just anything. I will move into an old house, and we're looking at other old homes. It's just fun. It's just cool. It just has a life. We can all geek out a little bit when we feel like there's something weird in the attic, or you hear this sound and stuff like that. No house that I've ever been in has had a very negative feel to it. They've always been very uplifting, if that makes any sense. It's just something that you feel like there's a life around you, and especially, I would assume they appreciate what we're doing. Maybe they, in some places they don't. Maybe they're angry. I don't know what it is, but I believe in it. I believe that there's, been many people before me here that still, reside. Do they sleep in the bed next to me? No. At least I don't think so.
That's good to know. That would be awkward, huh?
Yeah. I mean, that's the good thing about dogs, is that they, for whatever, I'm turning around and look at Gretel, see if she's still alive over here. They sense these things a lot more than we do as people. So she'll just start barking all of a sudden one day, and I'm like, wait, what is going on? And then she just barking at a wall, and I'm like, oh, okay. Would you please let Mr. or Mrs. alone, for crying out loud? They're just trying to walk down the stairs.
Yeah. My dog will look up in the corner and just stare for the longest time, and I'm thinking, what is up there?
Yeah.
But yeah, I grew up in the Midwest in an old home, not as old as the homes you work on, but it was, I think, the late 1800s. And I remember when my parents were remodeling it, it was like they were peeling away history, the wallpaper, layer by layer. And it was really absolutely fascinating.
It is cool to see the horsehair plaster, and to see, when you talk about the wallpaper, the old glues, getting into plaster, seeing the lath, understanding how that, those practices are gone. We don't plaster anymore with lath. We use, a green board or what have you. We can repair it sometimes, but a majority of the time it will be a drywall patch or something along those lines, just because the efficiency of it is, it's not, we try our best. And this is what you were talking about earlier, bringing the history back in them. We have different building practices now, and it's also a cost thing for some homeowners. There's some projects where we can go back to an original form, but townships push us pretty hard when it comes into, when you talk about ceiling heights, when you talk about rise and run of steps, when you talk about egress in these old homes, none of them meet it, So to try to get variances for those sort of things can sometimes be kind of very different. It depends on the township. You have to really push them. You really have to show the knowledge that you have, and really speak to the saving the historic features instead of trying to get rid of everything.
I know you've been on multiple television shows. How did you get your first big break? Could you tell us about that?
I had to pay someone. No, I'm kidding. The truth be told, I was a cameraman for many, many years, where I had filmed some of these renovation shows, if you will. I found a beautiful balance in my life at an early age where I could be a carpenter, low stress, because it's a self-fulfilling job where I can go get the jobs, I can work on the job, I can get paid. But then I had an opportunity to travel around for a bit, all over the United States, filming some of these extreme sports and different events. So I was a cameraman, in particularly a jib operator, a good friend of mine, Jim, got me sort of sucked into it. And then I traveled around with him. He taught me everything there was to know about camera. I did that for a while, and then the two worlds just sort of collided one day, where a friend was dropping off a camera at the house that I'm in now, I guess 10 years ago or so. I was just working on it, and he had noted the fact that, like, oh, that's right, you're still a carpenter, because in the world of TV, behind the camera anyway, you're freelance. So you can work for a week or 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden you have off for a week. So the balance was really nice to be able to be a freelance photographer and then also be a carpenter. So I could fill all the different holes and had different revenues. So it was nice, and I could kind of take a job or not take a job depending on how busy I was. Then they came over to the house one day to drop off a camera that was a rental camera, saw that I was doing the work here in this house, and I was sticking to the historical, hand cut joints for these certain things. And he was like, man, I forgot you did this. I really appreciate it. He came back the next day unannounced, didn't tell me he was coming because he knew I was working on it. I was pulling 2 mortgages at that point because I had just moved in, and I had to get the other one sold, but I had to get this done and finished. And he lied to me, and he got a brand new camera, and he said, I just want to film you doing what you do with this new camera to test the camera out. And I'm like, sure, but you can't get in my way. I just got to get done. He's like, just kind of talk through what you're doing, drink your coffee, whatever. So he filmed me. Little did I know, with his intention was to send the tape into HGTV with the production company that was right there. I got a call 2 weeks later. They asked me to be on a show called Spice Up My Kitchen. I thought it was a joke. I kind of hung up the phone and was like, no. And then it became very real, very quick. And I had a very, most people believe that carpenters on TV shows get paid millions and millions of dollars. I did not. This salary, I took a pay cut to be on television. So, and I fought with it for a while because I was behind the camera, and I had always looked with the people in front of the camera as, why can't they just say what they're doing? Like, why is this so hard? Like, I could do it better. And in all honesty, when I had the opportunity, the only reason why I was able to jump in front of the camera is because the people behind the camera I'd already known. They were my friends. So, the best advice I ever got is don't think before you speak when you're in television, unless you're doing live TV, that's different. But it's all about just that quick, raw emotion, or that quick, raw response, or that quick, witty, whatever. And I was good at that because everybody behind the camera, they were my friends.
Well, tell us about your business, Schoolhouse Woodworking.
Yeah. So Schoolhouse Woodworking is a restoration company where we fix old homes, but recently we've kind of changed focus a little bit, where I have a retail space now that's 6,000 square feet and growing. We're located, believe it or not, in a mall. Yes, I said in a mall.
Right.
Malls are, I don't want to say dying, because I think that they're coming and going. They're just going through like a weird retail therapy thing or whatever it is. But we had an opportunity to get a large space. So we decided, what the heck, let's put a full wood shop in there, and let's also open up retail. And then let's also teach people what we do. So I'd love to say there's a million different employees, but it's just me and Brett's my assistant, which in all honesty, he's actually in the other room right now, spackling the ceiling in my house. He's helping me get my house on the market. And he's doing more work than I am right now, which is kind of, I'm a little bit jealous, but at the same time, I'm like, I feel like I owe him 10 times more. But it's nice to have that small kind of family oriented thing. My kids come and run the cash register at the store. We're only open on the weekends. So we kind of we built custom furniture. We build, all sorts of different things. We love the holidays because people were like, hey, can you build this? Can you build this? And we're like, yeah, we can do it. Let's do it. And we just started throwing everything out. So whereas we were normally in homes, restoring this and this, to get out of that for a while and to get solely in the shop was really, I think it was a nice needed change.
Now you teach classes sometimes as well, right?
Yep. Yeah. You're looking at the teacher himself. I think it's really important. It's really cool to see people that watch the show. It's hard. I don't understand how I got to where I am. I really don't. I'm very blessed. I don't really feel like I know any more than anybody else out there in the carpentry world, or maybe a little more in the historic world, but to have the opportunities that I've been given, to be blessed, to be surrounded by good people, and still also feel that kind of inadequacy, like I don't deserve any of this. I'm just happy that people want to learn. It is a little awkward sometimes when people come there, because I think that, when you're trying to teach them something, they might look at you as a guru because you're on a TV show or you've had the years of experience, where I'm like, this is just what we do. It's like going to the dentist and putting them up on a pedestal. You're like, oh my God, you're so amazing. The way you use that drill in my mouth, nobody thinks that way. And it's hard to kind of, to make the connection
Right.
with the TV thing, but it's fun to watch people's eyes open up. I'm excited when we were able to grab, somebody younger and say, here, you can do it. You can use the miter saw. We try to protect our kids so much that, we don't let them use the miter saw. We don't let them use the nail gun. If you teach them how to use it appropriately at a younger age, they're going to be much safer. If you're going to wait till they're older and they're going to be scared by the noise of it. Now, this could be spouses, boyfriend, girlfriend, grandparents. It doesn't matter. Putting these things in people's hands and empowering them is so very important.
I took woodshop. I think I was in the 8th grade. I don't know if they have woodshop these days in school.
They do in certain schools, and it depending on the school. And again, the funding for the schools. Some of these, my kids have been very lucky. Their school is like huge. They have every resource in the world, but some of the schools in the city, they just don't have those resources. So therefore, they don't have woodshop. So therefore, if depending on where you live, will depend on whether or not you're given the, the upper hand, if you will, to at least try some of these things. So hopefully in those areas, people have to really try to inspire kids differently with, whether or not it be a contractor next door and get that experience or use that saw or, and the hope is that with any of these shows, the DIY, HGTV, Magnolia, television with Chip and Joanna Gaines, whatever it be, I think at the end of the day, all of this television, people are just getting inspired. So whether or not it be shops, whether or not it be for them to build themselves, it's all about inspiring people to try to look at things a little different and say, yeah, you can do it. There's certain things that I'm going to say, you can do it, but you're not going to do it in a weekend. There are some things for certain people, they just have a better design eye. They think differently. And that, what I will say is, that's where relationships come into play. I don't mean physical relationships. I mean like, hey, you got a friend that knows how to do this better than you. Put your ego aside, have them come out and look at the job. On the show, I don't do the decorating per se. I don't say put the candlestick here. I do in my own house. But at the same time, crazy, I'm a very boring person when it comes to design. I need people to push me because I would prefer just white walls with a nice historic trim and some paneling here and there, some beautiful hardware, and maybe a green wreath here and there. And that's all you really need, because that's all it was from a historic standpoint of view when it was built. So I have to be pushed too. So surrounding yourself with people that can push you respectfully and that you can listen to their opinions is really, really helpful. I think that many men, especially, I hate to be sexist, but the men don't like to get other people's opinions. They just don't. They feel like it's an ego thing, and they don't want to be told that they need to build it differently. So it's important to kind of share the knowledge and share the experience with everybody.
What does a day in the life of Jeff Devlin look like?
Depends on the day. Today was just basically a day of paperwork and trying to get started on projects at the house. Majority of the time when I'm going to the shop, it's I get up ridiculously early. Today was 3:30. Normally it's 4:30. I sit down here, I answer a bunch of emails because I get a ton of emails from people from either the show or clients. And then I head out to the shop around a little before 7. I stop at Dunkin' Donuts. I get myself a nice cup of coffee. I have a couple cups here, and then I have to get a Dunkin' cup because that's very important, because that one has sugar in it. The one at home doesn't have the sugar in it. I'm not supposed to have sugar. I don't tell my doctor that, I know. So hopefully he won't see this. But then we're at the shop for pretty much all day. Most of the time, if we have a job, we'll go out to the job. Normally we start at the shop and then work through projects. We try to cut, and this is something that as I get older, I never used to do this. And this all depend on whether or not it's a TV day or not. This is like a normal day. I stop at 4 o'clock or try to stop around that time to make sure I'm home to make dinner. I'm a single dad. So I just want to make, dinner for my kids when they're here, be here, make sure I'm listening to them. And, unless they're complaining, because then I just completely just forget about it. And then I try to kind of unwind a little more computer stuff to follow up with the emails that were sent in the morning. And then normally my butt is in bed with a bowl of ice cream on my stomach around 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then I pass out no later than 9:30.
That is a full day, I tell you, especially getting up that early.
But again, I love getting up that early. It's quiet. It's peaceful. It's, it's up before everything else. It's nice this time of year. The sun's up, 6 o'clock-ish. So it's nice to see, the world going at that time. And I'm ready. It kind of bums me out in the wintertime when it's like you got to wait till like 7:30 almost. And I've been up and going for hours. So It's nice to the summertime has a certain life to it that I love.
How has COVID-19 affected your business?
So oddly enough, the retail side, we've completely closed. In a strange way, it's sort of been a blessing because I was burning the candle at both ends. I work during the week at the shop and then working the weekends at the register and getting things ready and teaching classes. So in that sense, it's, I think it's brought a lot of these families together because you're sitting around the table more. You're talking to your kids a lot more because they're home. They're forced to be home, and it wasn't you forcing them to be home. So it's forced family fun, but it's not you who's forcing them. So it's actually been a little bit of a blessing because I think we can all get wrapped up in today's world of, just work. Work is, we have computers, we have phones where we're always accessible. We're always thinking about it. Gone are the days where you work 9 to 5 and you're done at 5. Owning a small business, you're constantly thinking about how to reinvent yourself. You're constantly trying to think about social media. How do I promote this? How do I do it tastefully? So it's been good for me. I'm going to start worrying in the next couple of days, probably because I have, a lot of inventory just sitting there. But we protect ourselves from that, make sure that we've saved appropriately. And we've been busy in the shop building, for the most part, the entire time.
So in my research, I discovered that you're a bit of a rock star.
Was.
Right.
Yeah. So there was a time ago when I played in a cover band, had the long hair. I don't know if you found the photos of that.
I haven't, but I'm very interested now. I'm going to have to find those.
We were a band called, I was in a couple of different bands, but the band that I loved and was the best ever was called Powder. We do have a Facebook page. You'd have to figure out where it is. I don't know if it'll pop up, but it was just a bunch of, happy-go-lucky guys, just loved playing music. I was younger and I was able to be the fun carpenter and travel around and also do these silly gigs, which is funny because I can't believe I stayed up till 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning and then did a regular job. It's amazing what you can do when you're young. Now I even think I get up at 3, let alone go to bed at 3.
Right.
But I was a guitar player, screamer, singer, whatever you want to call. I love it. There's always a guitar within hand reach here in the house. My kids love playing. They like singing. It comes and goes. More mandolin these days and more ukulele than guitar. But music's important, I think, in most people's lives. And in the Devlin household, it's essential.
Maybe you could start a band that plays revolutionary music from that era.
That's more just the and the tin flute, the tin whistle. Sorry, yeah. But those are still, believe me, not to geek out, but there's an impression, whatever. It's a George Washington. He dresses up like George Washington. And this guy stays in character, and he has a little band that goes around with him, or they have, the music where they're all dressed up. And every single time, one thing I've not done yet is that I have never gotten dressed up in historical garb. And I want to hang out with George Washington in historical garb because I think it would be fun and listen to the music and sit there around a campfire and tell stories. Because the last time that I spoke with him, he was telling me sort of some of these battles and where his head was. I swear, it was like I was talking to the real George Washington. It was crazy. He's like, I was really worried about this, and we were cold, and he's like, you felt it. I was like, man, I want to go to a campfire with this guy. It's awesome.
Yeah, actually, I'm engaged, and my dream is to get married at Colonial Williamsburg and dress in period clothing, and my fiance could wear the powder wig and everything.
Yeah.
It might be a little weird,
but might not need. Yeah, but Colonial Williamsburg is amazing. After every season, I try to go there to kind of, because when we shoot Stonehouse, it sucks you dry. Like it really, it takes a little bit out of you. Filming is not what people think because you open yourself up to criticisms, you open yourself up to other people's opinions, and you are really a target for some things. Now, mind you, there's a ton of good that comes out of it, but being a person who does not have thick skin, I feel very deeply when someone attacks you for a design or a technique or something like that. So I take it very personally. So when all is said and done, it's nice to go away. And my go away has always been Williamsburg. And it's a place where you know, I always say I'm going to do something completely by hand, but I think I've only done it once where I haven't broken out the planer or something like that. You go to Colonial Williamsburg, they have a full wood shop where these guys don't touch anything. They're not allowed. They drive their cars up to the outside. They're not allowed to even park within distance. They got to walk the 2 miles to work in their garb with their little tool bag. I'm like, it's the coolest thing ever. It's very invigorating. Then I come home and, I'm whittling for 2-3 hours, cut myself. And I'm like, I'll go use the miter saw.
All right. So is Stonehouse Revival on TV now?
So it is. It still airs. We have been, we were canceled about 2 years ago due to a switch with the network. They always say, you never know. But, we pretty much were like, okay, well, we were taken a bit by surprise because we were doing well in the ratings, which I guess I never thought I'd care about that stuff, but I did. The more people that watched, the better I felt. So 2 years ago was a big crushing blow. But now it still airs. It still airs. And the cool thing is I get emails from Australia. So we've done some of the Facebook Lives and stuff like that to kind of, because people are really reaching out and sending me kind of very poignant things. Like, if you don't do a YouTube channel, you're an idiot. You should really do that. And a little bit of it is like, look, this is our regular life and working and then trying. I never wanted to be on TV, never thought of it in that sense, and never really, I don't find myself being complete by being in front of a camera. I find myself complete doing what I do. So it was something when it was taken away from us, I think we all were like, bummed we couldn't really share our experience with other people. But at the same time, life went back to normal pretty quickly. There's rumblings of it coming back. I have no idea. I don't hold my breath. I just sort of, if it comes back, it comes back, and we get to share some cool stuff with people. If not, then that's fine. I still do what I do, and I still smile as much as I possibly can.
I'll keep my fingers crossed.
Awesome. Well, good.
Yeah.
That's
so
good.
Are there any HGTV DIY shows that you like that are out there now?
Mm-hmm. I love watching Barnwood Builders. That's that was my go-to. I don't watch a lot of TV now just because I've kind of tried to step back from it a bit, because I watch it differently. I think when I watch these shows, I watch it, like how could I do my job better? And I got wrapped up into it. How do I communicate better with the audience or the homeowner? So for me, it was starting to get a little bit weird, where I preferred to watch things like Family Guy or something completely dumb or Bob's Burgers and take me in a different direction, or, a Marvel movie or something like that. I love the day and age of binge watching a TV show. It's really cool. It's just, to me, everything's sort of changed. Being in front of the camera has changed my TV viewing habits when it comes to reality construction TV. But I love when I think things are real, and the Barnwood Builders it's real. And I love watching this old house.
So what current projects are you working on that we didn't talk about?
So right now we're about to undertake again, everything's in the works. We're at the point where we finished other jobs. We're finishing a job up in Jersey. And then there's a possibility of working on a nice house right down the street from here, and a couple of projects that I'm happy to say are local. So they're nice because they're not far drives. So managing those is easy. A bunch of projects that are custom tables that are in the shop, which I love doing. I will be going out and doing consults with people where we go to their house, or I go to their house and talk about what could possibly potentially work. And those are, all in the early phases of whether or not they're a good fit for us, as well as we're a good fit for them. Because I'm not a sales guy, never will be. I know most salespeople say that's the best pitch ever. I'm like, it's not. It's just, I know that my focus is carpentry. So I think laying and educating homeowners, and I wish more contractors were able to do this, where you have to educate them to what they're about to walk into, whether or not it be good, bad, and different. In every job, you should be able to walk away from. Every single job, you should be able to walk away from. You shouldn't be in a position where you need to do that or something changes. If that's the case, you should really rethink your process. And I'm not doubting people. I'm just telling you from experience. I was there where I couldn't turn down jobs and I had to take them. And my experience, as soon as I started being able to say no, you become much more enticing to people, believe it or not, one. And two, you're much happier and healthier. And at the end of the day, it's really kind of what it's about, staying as healthy, both mentally and physically, in this process of craziness and the balance of trying to balance kids, love life, family, and then also the most important is you time.
Well, in that vein, I have one last question. Actually, it's two. What is your life philosophy, and do you have any words of wisdom to offer people, especially while our country is going through the things it's going through right now?
It's tough, when you have to put on, pandemic and let's call it civil wars happening across the United States. Let's be honest, it's about time. It's hard for, I would love to sit here and say all these things, but it's hard for me as a white, dare I say, privileged man, who has all of his hair and all of his teeth, and I've been given a lot, whereas others have not. I've had to work for a lot of what I have to work for everything that I've been given. But for me to look at things in a way that society has looked at, I don't judge. My dad raised me that, unfortunately we see color. We see black, we see white, we see yellow, we see all those different things, but how you were raised and how you react to those things. So what stories have you been told? What things have you experienced that start to tell a story in your own head where you're reliving those stories every day? That's the dialogue, or that's the story that has to change. And I really think that at the end of the day, hate is something that breeds other hate, no matter who you are. If you start your day, and I know you probably have many friends, Kelly, who you get on the phone with them, and I have a couple myself. How are you doing? I'm good. Those people, it's very difficult to get into their head to change their happiness or their whatever. And there might not be anything you can do, but they have to do it themselves. So it was nice to see what's going on in the world where, I feel weird with the news that they do focus a lot on the negative. I like being educated, but at the same time, we all know rioting happens for a reason, and these things, it's oppression of years and years and years. And I can't really speak to that. All I can see is that what about the 800,000 people that were supporting the cause regardless and want to see change on every behalf? I think that that's important to notice instead of focusing on, 8 people who looted and rioted, or maybe even 100 people that were bad or whatever. We don't know their perspective. We don't know why they're doing it. Maybe, again, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's right or wrong, but again, perspective is very big. And what eyes and what shoes you walk in or what have you really will change how you view certain things. So I try not to view from other people's eyes. I just try to view it from my own. And that's how I've gotten to where I am, and that's how I sort of stay sane in this process. My daughter wants to go to, there's a big, huge walk in our town of Westchester tonight. And as a parent, my first initial thing is, I want her to, first is she going to be safe? And that's something that, that's me, and my worry is my daughter going to be safe, when in reality, what she just wants to do is have her voice be heard and support a cause, which, initially my reaction should have been right away. Heck yeah, you do that. You support what you believe to be right, and you support it for the right reasons. And, I'm still learning as a parent, and I'm learning as an adult, and I'm growing every single day. So it's sad to see all this stuff happen, but I think that things have to come to a head at some point with everything. And in people's lives, you take it until you can't take it anymore. And change happens when you can't take it anymore. And the world just couldn't take it anymore. And change is inevitable now. So if it doesn't, something else will spark it to do it again. So that's something that's really important. Again, I'm not political in that sense. There's many people that will step up in the place of other leadership that will be somebody else to follow. And I think that that's really cool. On the sense of COVID, look, this is a weird time. I think, it's maybe what we needed. If you look back in history and the Bible, you talk about, the plagues and all of this sort of stuff. And I'm not saying there's any reason to write, for people to die, but I'm just saying, I think we can be a lot more careful. And I think that it might, even if it just changes a couple of people to be like, hey, how you doing? Instead of, just a little bit more nice, where people are giving people a little more room. They're not running around each other. They're not bumping into each other. They're being a little more cautious. I just think I think we needed it.
Jeff, thank you for those words of wisdom, and thank you for being on Born to Inspire podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it greatly, given the opportunity. It was great chatting with you. Hopefully we get to do it again in the future.
I would love that. Jeff is not only great at restoring historic homes, but he also has such a positive outlook on life and a spirit of joy. You can catch Stone Home Revival on DIY Network, and more info on Jeff's business can be found at schoolhousewoodworking.com. Thank you, Jeff, for taking the time out of your busy life to be on Born to Inspire podcast. Also, thanks to my executive producers, Mary Helm, Nia Bender, and Richard Randall. If you're enjoying Born to Inspire podcast, you can join the community at patreon.com/Born to Inspire. All proceeds go to improving the podcast. Join me next Friday when we hear from Paula Francis, the founder and president of Gross National Happiness USA. Stay safe, healthy, and happy, and see you next time.